So, today we are going to discuss a subject ME8071 Refrigeration and Air Conditioning. This presentation is prepared by Professor M. Balamurugan and Sepa Karthi, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Government College of Engineering, Bodi Nayakanur. So, these are the things that we are going to discuss today in Unit 2. First one is vapor compression cycle, then pH and TS diagrams of vapor compression cycle, and deviation from theoretical cycle, that is subcooling and superheating, then effect of condenser and evaporator pressure on COP, then cascade systems, and then types of compressors, condensers, expansion devices, and evaporators. So these are all the things that we are going to discuss on Unit 2. So this is vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So this diagram explains how vapor compression refrigeration cycle actually works. So vapor compression uses a circulating liquid refrigerant as the medium, which absorb and remove heat from the space to be cooled and subsequently reject that heat somewhere else. So it will absorb some amount of heat from the space which is to be cooled and then reject that heat to somewhere else. So in this diagram we will able to see a compressor, a condenser, an expansion valve, and a evaporator. Let us try to understand how vapor compression refrigeration cycle works. So this diagram explains how a vapor compression refrigeration cycle works. A vapor compression refrigeration cycle consists of four important processes. First one is a process 1 to 2, that is isentropic compression in compressor, and then process 2 to 3, that is constant pressure heat rejection at condenser, and process 3 to 4 is a throttling process and it will happen in an expansion valve. So process 4 to 1 is constant pressure heat addition process in evaporator. So these are the four important process a vapor compression refrigeration cycle consists. So in this slide you can able to see two pictures. One is on the left side and another one is right side. The left side picture show how the refrigerant is circulating in vapor compression refrigeration cycle, and the another picture, that is in right side, in the TS diagram the state of refrigerant is explained. So let us try to understand stage by stage. First stage, that is process 1 to 2 in compressor. So the refrigerant will first enter into the compressor and it compressed to higher pressure in the compressor. So the refrigerant is actually compressed to higher pressure when it came out from the compressor, and then it will enter into the condenser. So process 2 to 3 will take place at here in condenser. After coming from the condenser, the refrigerant will be a saturated liquid stage, and this refrigerant is allowed to enter into expansion valve. After this, the refrigerant is allowed to enter into the evaporator. So this is how the refrigerant will circulate in vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So if you plot all these process in an TS and pH diagram, so it will look like this. So the green color line is a saturation curve and the blue one is a vapor compression refrigeration cycle line. So this is TS and pH diagram of a vapor compression refrigeration cycle, an ideal vapor compression refrigeration cycle, you can say. Let us try to analyze all the four processes involved in vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So process 1 to 2, that is in compressor. We already discussed in compressor the process 1 to 2 is isentropic compression. So let us try to understand what is actually happening on a compressor. The inlet refrigeration is low pressure, low temperature, saturated vapor. So this is the inlet condition of circulating refrigerant. So if you see the TS and pH diagram, this point 1 is actually the entry point of compressor before the entry into the compressor. So this point, as we discussed, is at a state of low pressure, low temperature, and also in a saturated vapor stage. So let us try to understand the outlet condition. Outlet refrigerant is high pressure, high temperature, saturated or superheated vapor. So if you see the diagrams, point 2 is a outlet condition of compressor. So from the TS diagram, it clearly understand the point 2 is at high pressure, high temperature, saturated or superheated vapor. In this case, it is a superheated vapor. And one more important thing is the point 1. The point 1 need not to be always in saturated vapor line. It may be in superheated region or in a wet domain. So this is the inlet and outlet condition of the refrigerant in vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Inlet and outlet condition of compressors. So if you want to calculate how much amount of work input is given to the compressor, you can find by knowing the enthalpy at inlet and outlet. So compressor work per kg of mass flow rate is equal to H2 minus H1. It states that if you able to calculate enthalpy at these 2 points, that is point 2 and point 1, you can find how much amount of input is required for compressor to compress the refrigerant to stage 1 to stage 2. So these are all the things happening on process 1 to 2 in compressor. Let's go to the next process, that is process 2 to 3. Process 2 to 3 will happen on condenser. We already know process 2 to 3 is constant pressure heat rejection at a condenser. So process 2 to 3 is constant rejection heat rejection process in condenser. So if you try to understand the inlet and outlet condition of refrigerant, the inlet is high pressure, high temperature, saturated vapor. If you see the TS diagram, the inlet condition is actually the outlet condition of compressor is inlet to the condenser. So the point 2 is at high pressure, high temperature and superheated vapor in this case. It need not to be a superheated vapor in all the cases, but in our case it is superheated vapor. So let us try to understand the outlet condition of condenser. The outlet refrigerant is high pressure, low temperature and saturated liquid stage. So if you see the point 3, so point 3 is the outlet condition of condenser and the point 3 is at high pressure, low temperature and saturated liquid refrigerant. So this is the outlet condition of refrigerant in a condenser. So if you want to calculate how much amount of heat is removed in condenser, if you able to calculate enthalpies at point 2 and 0.3, you will come to know how much amount of heat is rejected in condenser. So heat rejected in condenser is H2 minus H3. So this is the thing happening on process 2 to 3, that is constant pressure heat rejection in condenser. The next process is process 3 to 4, and process 3 to 4 is happening on a throttling device. We already know that process 3 to 4 is a throttling process. So what is throttling process? In a throttling process, there will be no significant change in enthalpies before and after throttling. So let's try to understand the inlet and outlet conditions of refrigerant before throttling and after throttling. So the inlet is high pressure, low temperature, saturated liquid. So actually this is the outlet condition of condenser, which is the inlet condition to the throttling device. So if you see from the TS diagram, actually 0.3, this is the inlet point to throttling device. So 0.3 is high pressure, low temperature, saturated liquid line. And if you observe the pH diagram of process 3 to 4, it is a vertical line which states as there is no change in enthalpy. So that is why it is called throttling process. And in throttling process, there will be no significant change in enthalpy. So H3 is almost equal to H4, you can say. So this is the thing. Let's go to the next process, that is process 4 to 1, which is happening on evaporator. We already discussed process 4 to 1 is constant pressure heat addition process. So if you try to find out the inlet and outlet condition of refrigerant in evaporator, the inlet is low pressure, very low temperature, saturated liquid and vapor mixture. So this condition is the outlet condition of throttling device, which is the outlet is very low pressure, low temperature, saturated liquid and vapor mixture. So this outlet condition of throttling process is input to the evaporator. So if you observe the point on TS diagram, the point 4, this is the inlet to evaporator, and this point is at low pressure, very low temperature, and it will be in a wet domain, which is mixture of saturated vapor and liquid, you can say mixture of liquid and vapor. So if you see the outlet condition of process 4 to 1, the outlet is very low pressure, low temperature, saturated vapor. So if you observe the point 1 on TS diagram is the outlet condition of evaporator, which is the point is at low temperature, low pressure, saturated vapor. So this is actually this is input to the compressor. So this is how the cycle will keep on working. So once again try to understand what is happening on vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Let us assume this evaporator setup is inside your room, which is to be air conditioned, or you have to maintain lower temperature. So the indoor unit of your room is evaporator, and the compressor, condenser, expansion valve will be on outside. So if you want to keep your room at lower temperature, you have to continuously reject some amount to the sink, that is to the environment. So it will continuously, you have to reject that amount of heat. How it will happen? So let us assume somehow anyhow you will fill the refrigerant into this setup. So try to follow this circulating thing. Let us assume this is the refrigerant. So if you able to follow this refrigerant, the refrigerant actually will enter into compressor as a saturated vapor, and it will get compressed to higher pressure, and then it will enter into condenser. In condenser, the latent heat of condensation is rejected, and then the refrigerant is converted into liquid stage. It may be a saturated one or subcooled one. After coming out from the condenser, the refrigerant is allowed into expansion device, where the temperature of the refrigerant is reduced to lower temperature, but there will be no significant change in enthalpy. So because the process 3 to 4 one is a throttling process, and then the refrigerant is allowed into evaporator. Here, what the refrigerant will do, it will absorb the heat inside your room, and it will convert into saturated vapor. So before entering into the evaporator, the refrigerant is at low temperature, low pressure, saturated vapor liquid mixture. After entering into the evaporator, it will absorb the heat from your refrigerator space, that is your room, and then it will convert into low pressure, low temperature, but saturated vapor. It what actually happen, it will absorb its latent heat of evaporation. In evaporator, the refrigerant will absorb its latent heat of evaporation, and then evaporation process will take place. That is why this device is called evaporator. In condenser, the device will the refrigerant will reject it latent heat of condensation. So condensation process will take place. That is why the device is called condenser. So this is how the vapor compression refrigeration cycle actually works. Let's go to the next topic, that is COP calculation. We already discussed about COP in first unit itself. So what is COP? COP, it is called coefficient of performance. It is the ratio between desired effect. In this case, it is refrigeration effect. If you use for heating purpose, it will be heating effect. So in this case, it is a refrigeration effect to the work input per kg. So it is the ratio between desired effect to the work input to per kg. So COP equal to refrigerant effect, that is heat absorbed in evaporator divided by work input per kg of refrigerant. So we already discussed the refrigerant effect, that is the heat absorbed in evaporator is H1 minus H4, and the work input into the condenser is H2 minus H1. So the ratio between these two things is called COP, that is coefficient of performance, and we already know what is COP and its significance in first unit itself. So H1, H2, H3, H4 are the enthalpies at corresponding state in TS diagram. If you are able to find out the enthalpies at all points, it will be very useful to calculate COP. In problems, most of the cases, you will ask you to find COP. What is the COP of refrigeration system? And you will be given with some data. You have to find out enthalpies at all the points, and then using this formula, you can find what is the COP of system. So let us try to solve one basic problem. The statement of problem is a refrigerator uses R134A, that is the name of refrigerant, as a working fluid and operates an ideal vapor compression cycle. So note the word ideal vapor compression cycle, and what we have discussed earlier on is ideal vapor compression cycle between pressure limits of 0.14 and 0.8 megapascal. So these are the two pressure limit. The higher one 0.8 is a condenser pressure, and 0.14 lower one is a evaporator pressure. If the mass flow rate of the refrigerant is 0.05 kg per second, mass flow rate of the refrigerant is given, and you are asked to find rate of heat removal from the refrigerated space. So how much amount of heat? Actually, they are asking how much amount of heat is removed in evaporator. And second one is rate of heat rejected to environment. That is how much amount of heat rejected in process 2 to 3. And then COP of refrigerator. So let's try to solve this problem. In any problem, first try to draw the TS diagram. So the problem itself, it is stated thus, it is an ideal vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So you can use this diagram. So ideal vapor compression refrigeration cycle means compressor is isentropic and the refrigerant leaves the condenser as the saturated liquid, that is 0.3, and enters the compressor as saturated vapor, that is 0.1. So these are the things you have to understand in ideal vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So from the refrigerant 134A table, enthalpies are determined as follow. Actually, this is the given data. So at point 1 P1, that is at lower pressure, the enthalpy at point 1 H1, actually this in this point, the H1 is equal to Hg. H1 equal to Hg at 0.14 megapascal, that is equal to 239.16 kilojoule per kg, and S1 is equal to Sg at 0.14 megapascal, which is equal to 0.94456 kilojoule per kg. Like in point 2, that is at higher pressure, at condenser pressure 0.8 megapascal, S2 is equal to 0.94456 kilojoule per kg, and we already know process 1 to 2 is a isentropic process, so S1 is equal to S2. So you can take S1 is equal to S2, and then H2 is equal to 275.39 kilojoule per kg. In this problem, H2 is directly given, but in other few problem, the H2 may not be directly given. You have to find out H2. For that, what they will give the Hg at 0.8 megapascal, and there will be given with the 2 temperature limit, that is called degree of superheat. So you have to find out H2, which is equal to Hg plus degree of superheat, that is Cp delta T. So using this formula, you can find H2 in other problem. Hg will be given in question, and degree of superheat, that is delta T, will be given, and Cp also given. Using all this data, you can find what is H2. So in this problem, H2 is directly given, and at point 3, what is at point 3 equal to 0.8 megapascal, H3, that is HF, and we know 0.3 is saturated liquid stage, so H3 equal to HF at 0.8 megapascal, and this thing will be, you will get from the data book. And we already know that process 3 to 4 is a throttling process, which is H3 is equal to H4. So H3 is equal to H4 equal to 95.47 kilojoule per kg. So we have the values of enthalpy at all the points, that is H1, H2, H3, and H3 is equal to H4. So we have the values at all points. So first they asked rate of heat removal from refrigerated space, that is equal to QL dot, and we already know that we know how much amount of heat is rejected from the refrigerator space is equal to H1 minus H4. So this is the thing, H1 minus H4, and we have values for H1 and H4, and we are asked to find out rate of heat removal rate. So we have to multiply with mass flow rate. So m dot 0.05, that is mass flow rate, and H1 is equal to 239.16, and H4 we know, and we end up with the answer 7.18 kilowatt. So this is the amount of rate of heat removed from refrigerant space. And if you want to find how much amount of power input required to run the compressor, actually we need this value to find COP. So the power input is equal to m dot H2 minus H1. So this is the amount of work removed in this is the amount of work given to the compressor to compress the refrigerant. And we know the work input is H2 minus H1. Here we have to find out the power, so we are multiplying with mass flow rate, and we have answer 1.81 kilowatt. And the next they asked to find out rate of heat rejection from refrigerant to the environment. That is in process 2 to 3, that is in condenser. So how much amount of heat is removed in condenser to convert it into saturated vapor, superheated vapor to saturated liquid. And we know heat removed is in condenser is H2 minus H3. So here we are asked to find out rate. So we are multiplying with mass flow rate, that is m dot, and we end up with answer 9 kilowatt. You can calculate this thing by another way, which is the rate of heat removed in evaporator and work input to the compressor. This also will give you the same answer. And then COP. We know that COP is equal to desired effect divided by work input. Here it is a refrigerator, so our desired effect is refrigeration effect, that is 7.18 kilowatt, and we know how much amount of power input is required, that is 1.81. If you divide these two things, you will get the COP value of 3.97. So this is the basic problem. In any problem based on vapor compression refrigeration cycle, just try to find out enthalpies at all the points. If you able to calculate enthalpies at all the points, you can easily solve any kind of question based on vapor compression refrigeration cycle. For that, you have to have basic knowledge in the chapter called pure substance. You already studied in that chapter pure substance in your thermodynamics subject, so that is not a very hard thing for you. You can easily find out enthalpies at all the points, and you can solve the problem very easy. So what we have seen before is a ideal case, that is ideal vapor compression refrigeration cycle. There may be some different cases in vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Just try to understand all those cases. The first case is if output of the compressor is dry saturated. That is, the output of the compressor is, in ideal case, the output of the compressor is at superheated stage. But here it is a dry saturated, that is 0.2. You can see the 0.2 will be on a saturation curve. So 0.2, the output of the compressor is a saturated vapor. So this is the case for if the output of the compressor is dry saturated. So if you observe the TS diagram, you can clearly see if the 0.2 is on a dead dry saturated vapor, definitely the point 1 will be in a wet domain. In compressor, it is very difficult to compress the mixture of liquid and vapor. So this case is not preferred in actual vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Anyhow, we have to study these things. Let's go for the next case. If output of the compressor is superheated. So this is the ideal case. We have already discussed. The output is at superheated stage. So no need to discuss this anymore. We can directly go to the next case. If the output of the compressor is superheated vapor. If the input of the compressor is superheated vapor. If you observe the TS diagram, you can clearly see the point 1 is in superheated region. So after leaving out from the evaporator, there is some more sensible heat is added. That is why the point 1 is shifted to superheated region. So this is the case of superheated vapor. So after in process 1 to 2, we know it is isentropic compression. Process 2 to 3 is constant pressure heat rejection in condenser, and process 3 to 4 is a throttling one, and 4 to 1 is a constant pressure heat rejection. So this is the case for if the input of the compressor is superheated vapor. Let's go to the next one. If the output of the compressor is wet vapor. If you observe the TS and pH diagram, you can clearly see the point 2 will be in a wet region. It states that the output of the compressor is a wet vapor. So this is the case for if the output of the compressor is wet vapor. Just try to understand all these cases, then you will have a clear idea on your subject. The next condition is if the output of the compressor is subcooled to liquid. Actually, there is one small correction. If the this is not a compressor, this is a condenser. If the output of the condenser is subcooled to liquid, then only this case is possible. We all know the output of the compressor is never be subcooled to liquid. So if the output of the condenser is subcooled to liquid, that is this point 3. So 3 dash to 3 is called subcooled process. And later on we will see how all these things will affect the COP and other things. So this is the thing for if the output of the condenser is subcooled to liquid. So this is the TS and PS diagram for this case. Just mind this correction. This is not a compressor. This is a condenser. If the output of the condenser is subcooled to liquid, then only this case is possible. Let's go to the next topic. Effect of operating parameters. So this is the important thing you have to understand in vapor compression refrigeration cycle. How the operating parameters will affect all other things, that is COP, refrigeration effect, and how much amount of work input, all these things. First one is increase in condenser pressure. So that green line is a ideal one, and the pink color one is the increased condenser pressure. So the point 2 is shifted to 2 dash, that is to higher pressure, and you are able to see if you shift this point, you can clearly see the work input is required. So the amount of heat, the amount of work required to run the compressor is increased. And if you see the refrigerant effect, that is this one. 4 dash to 1. It is actually decreased compared to ideal one. So work is increased and refrigerant effect is decreased, and we know COP is a function of refrigerant effect and work input. So definitely COP will decrease because COP is equal to refrigerant effect divided by work input. In this case, work input is increased and refrigerant effect is decreased. So COP will be definitely decreased. So this case is not decided. And the evaporator pressure depends on the desired lower temperature. How much amount of lower temperature you required, the evaporator pressure will depend on that thing. Let's go to the next case, that is decrease in condenser pressure. So if you actually, there is one correction, this is not decrease in condenser pressure, this is decrease in evaporator pressure. So if you decrease the evaporator pressure, what will happen? The work required is increase. You can follow this pink line. Green one is the ideal one. Compared to the ideal one, work required is increase if you decrease the evaporator pressure, and refrigerant effect also decrease. You can see the refrigerant effect also decreases. Hence, COP also decrease because we know that refrigerant effect is COP is refrigerant effect divided by work required. So in this case, COP will definitely decrease. So evaporator and condenser pressure, it both depend on some other parameters. We can't take any value for this condenser and evaporator pressure. So evaporator pressure depends on desired lower temperature and condenser pressure depends on surrounding temperature. So the next case is superheating. So superheating, due to superheating, the work required is increased, that is 0.1 dash to 2 dash, it increased compared to the ideal one, and refrigerant effect increases. You can see the refrigerant effect also increases because refrigerant effect, we know how much amount of heat is removed in evaporator. This case that is increased compared to ideal one. COP may increase or decrease depends on the what kind of refrigerant you are going to use, because the latent heat of the refrigerant is decide that increase or decrease in COP. Next case is subcooling. You can clearly see here the subcooling take place after leaving from the condenser. So due to subcooling, the work input is same. You can see 1 to 2 and 1 dash to 2 are almost equal. So work input is same. Refrigerant effect is increased. You can see here the horizontal line. The refrigerant effect increases and COP also increases because COP is equal to refrigerant effect to the work input. Here work input, the denominator is constant and numerator increases. So COP also increases. So next one is the combined effect of subcooling and superheating. In this case, you can clearly see 1 to 2 is in superheated region, that is the refrigerant leaving after the compressor, that is a 0.2 is in superheated region, and 0.3 the refrigerant leaving after the condenser is subcooled, 0.3 is subcooled. So in this case, work input increases, refrigerant effect increases, COP also increases. So now we will move to our next topic, which is a cascade refrigeration system. So we already discussed a vapor compression refrigeration cycle for a refrigeration process. Then why a cascade refrigeration system? Another refrigeration system is needed. If you observe, if the desired temperature is very low, then the corresponding evaporator pressure is also very low, which causes very high pressure ratios in compressors, due to which the volumetric efficiency is low. To maintain high volumetric efficiency, a cascade refrigeration system is used. In this cascade refrigeration system, a series of refrigerant with progressively low boiling point temperatures are used in a series of single stage units. That means the cascade refrigeration system consists two or more vapor compression refrigeration systems in series, which use refrigerants which have progressively lower boiling temperatures. So the cascade refrigeration is another type of vapor compression refrigeration cycle, you can say. So as we already discussed, a cascade refrigeration system is a combination of two vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Like you can see these two setups. It will look like a two-stage vapor compression refrigeration cycle. The first setup is kept in a cold refrigerated space. The evaporator will absorb the heat from the space and it will change into superheated vapor. Saturated vapor, and then it is compressed into superheated vapor. After it compressed, it will allow to flow in a condenser. So if you observe this area, a cascade condenser serves as a evaporator for a higher temperature cascade system. You can see the condenser is act as a evaporator for the high temperature cascade system, and a condenser for the low temperature cascade system. So it acts as condenser as well as a evaporator also. So remaining all the same thing what we have discussed in vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So if you observe the TS diagram, you can observe two important things. That is, the point one is, instead of compressing this point to this point, we are compressing into stages, two stages. So due to that, there is a decrease in compressor work, which is desired to increase the COP. And due to that, there will be some increase in refrigerant capacity also. So that will also increase the COP of the system. So the cascade system will have more COP compared to a vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Let's try how to find the COP of cascade refrigeration system. So this is the thermodynamic equivalent system of vapor compression, cascade system. So this is the lower temperature and this one is a higher temperature, and we are using two compressors, that is R1 and R2. So COP of first system is equal to QL divided by W1, and W1 is equal to QL divided by COP of 1, and then COP of 2 is equal to Q divided by W2, which is equivalent to, and that Q is equal to, from this diagram, Q is equal to QL plus W1. So the heat absorbed from the lower temperature plus the work input to the first compressor is equal to a Q. So COP of second compressor is equal to QL divided plus W1 divided by W2. And if you rearrange this COP of 2 using the equation 1, you will end with W2, which is equal to QL into 1 plus COP of first divided by COP of first into COP of 2. So the COP of cascade is ultimately QL divided by total work input, that is equal to W1 plus W2, and we already know the values of W1 and W2, and if you work on that, you will end up with the COP of cascade system, which is equal to COP of 1 multiplied with COP of 2 divided by 1 plus COP of 1 plus COP of 2. So this is the way to find out the COP of cascade refrigeration system. This derivation may asked in your examination. So let's go to the next topic, which is your refrigeration equipments. We already see a refrigeration setup consists of the following four important equipments. First one is a compressor, and then condenser, expansion or throttling valve, and then evaporator. So first, try to understand and study about the compressor. A refrigerant compressor is a machine used to compress the refrigerant from the evaporator and raise its pressure so that the corresponding temperature is higher than the cooling medium, and it also continuously circulates the refrigerant throughout the refrigerating system. So these are the main important work for a compressor. So this compressor, which is used in our home refrigerator, and it have some more types also. So types of compressors. The types are, first one is a reciprocating compressor, and then centrifugal compressor, and then rotary compressor, screw compressor, and then scroll compressors. So for the first type is the reciprocating compressor. You can see the refrigerant is coming in this port and leaving by this another port, coming in and then compressed and then leaving out in this port. There are few parts, that is piston, connecting rod, crankshaft, and a prime mover, which is used to rotate the crankshaft. So reciprocating compressor. What is reciprocating compressor? Compressor in which the vapor refrigerant is compressed by the reciprocating, that is the back and forth movement of piston, is called the reciprocating compressor. These compressors are used for refrigerant which have comparatively low volume per kg and a large differential pressure, such as ammonia, R12, R22, etc. So This reciprocating compressor is suitable for these kind of refrigerants. So next one is a centrifugal compressor. So this is the centrifugal compressor. A single stage centrifugal compressor mainly consists of the following four components: a inlet casing to accelerate the fluid to the impeller inlet, an impeller to transfer energy to the fluid in the form of increase in static pressure and kinetic energy, a diffuser to convert the kinetic energy at the impeller outlet into pressure energy, and a volt casing. And the volt casing is used to collect the fluid and to further convert the kinetic energy into pressure energy. So this is the impeller, a casing, a diffuser, a suction side which the refrigerant will actually come in, and the discharge side, the refrigerant will go out after it will get compressed. So this centrifugal compressor increases the pressure of low pressure vapor refrigerant to high pressure by a centrifugal force due to the rotation of impeller. And this kind of centrifugal compressor is generally used for refrigerant which require large displacement and low condensing pressure. And you can see there is no such complicated things like valves, pistons, cylinders, and connecting rods, etc. Therefore, the working life of the compressor is more as compared to the previous one, that is the reciprocating one. And these kind of compressors, the centrifugal compressors, are not practically used below the loads of 50 tons, which means you can't use this compressor below the load of 50 tons. 50 tons is a minimum one. So the next one is a rotary compressor. In a rotary compressor, the vapor refrigerant from the evaporator is compressed due to the movement of blades. You can see the blades here, right over there. And these compressors are basically positive displacement type compressor. And rotary compressors have high volumetric efficiency due to negligible clearance. They are normally used in a single stage up to a capacity of 5 TR with the refrigerant R114. Large rotary compressors are used in low temperature fields, such as in chemical refrigeration equipment and industrial processing, cold storage, and freezing as high displacement. Low stage or booster compressor at temperature limits of minus 90 to 100 degree Celsius evaporator temperature with R12, R22, and ammonia. So these are the some important points regarding to the rotary one. So we will go to the next type, the screw type, the screw compressor. The screw type condenser compressors have some more advantage regarding to the previous one. That is the centrifugal and reciprocating and rotary. The screw compressor is a positive displacement machine. High pressure refrigerants such as R22 and ammonia are used in it. As it has high speed rotary machine, a large volume can be handled by it very easily. It is therefore found extremely suitable for large capacity, low temperature application such as in food refrigeration. So next one is a scroll compressor. So this is the stages of scroll compressors. A scroll compressor uses two interleaving scrolls to pump, compress, or pressurized fluids such as liquid and gases. The vane geometry may be involute or Archimedean spiral or hybrid curves. Often, one of the scroll is fixed while the other orbit is eccentrically without rotating, thereby trapping and pumping or compressing pockets of fluid between the scrolls. So, the compression takes place between these two scrolling accents. One is arbitrary, another one is fixed. So, these are the stages of compression. What actually compression takes place. After the compressor, the imported device in refrigerator is a condenser. The function of the condenser are to desuperate the high pressure gas, condense it, and also subcool the liquid. Sometimes subcooling also will take place. So the main function is to change the phase to vapor to liquid. So this is the main function of condenser, and these are the types of condenser. There are three types of condenser. First one is air cooled, and then water cooled, and then evaporative. Let's see one by one. First one is a air cooled compressor. So as their name implies, air cooled condenser use air as a cooling medium, and water cooled condenser uses a water as a cooling medium, and evaporative condenser is a combination of both air and water. First one is air cooled compressor. The air cooled compressor also will have two type. One is natural convecting and another one is a forced convecting. So this is the natural convecting. Natural convection means due to the natural movement of air, the cooling will take place. Air movement over the surface of the condenser tube by each natural convection. So this is the tubes which will be in zigzag, and air flow will take place in any one of the direction. So due to the flow of air, it will take the heat from the refrigerant. So it absorbs the heat from the refrigerant, and thus the temperature of air increase. Warm air being lighter rises up, and it plays cooler air from below rises to take away from the heat from the condenser. So warm air will be on upper side and cool air will be on lower side. So this is the example of natural convection condenser. Next one is a forced cooled condenser. In forced cooled condenser, an external setup is used to force the air. You can see a fan right over there. Forced air circulation condenser employs a fan or a blower to move air over the condenser coil at a certain velocity. For circulating air over the condenser, fans are mounted on the shaft or pulley of compressor motor. For bigger capacity plants, a separate motor is used to drive the fan or blower also, or a hermetic compressor units. So the next type is a water cooled compressor. In water cooled compressor also there are some types. First one is a tube in tube or double tube you can say, and next is a cell and coil, and another is a cell and tube. Let's see one by one of them. So this is the tube in tube condenser. In tube type, a smaller diameter pipe is inserted inside a bigger diameter pipe. Water flows through the inner tube and the refrigerant through the annular space between the two tubes. The flow of refrigerant and water being arranged in opposite direction, that is a counter flow direction, to maximize the benefit of heat transfer. We already know the counter flow heat exchanger will have maximum efficiency. Due to the impurities present in water, scale can form on the outer side of tube. which can be impair the heat transfer. So, we know that sometimes scale will also increase the heat transfer, but this case it will reduce. Also, muck can settle on the surface. Some impurities may settle. Therefore, it becomes necessary to periodically clean the water tube. But in the tube-in-tube system, cleaning is not easy unless removable header is provided to connect all the tubes. So we have, if you want to clean this type, you have to do some more work. You have to take this setup separately and then you have to clean. So this is the passage which is used to flow the refrigerant, and this passage is for coolant, water you can say. So next type is a cell and coil type condenser. From the diagram itself you can see cell and a coil which is used to cool the refrigerant. Let's see what happening on cell and coil type. Cell and coil type consist of a welded steel cell containing a coil of inner tube. You can see the cell and tube inside coil. Water flows in the coil, the refrigerant being in the cell. So the water will flow in the coil and refrigerant will remain in the cell. Due to that, the heat will be transferred into the water and refrigerant get cooled. Next is a cell and tube type. In a cell and tube type condenser, a number of straight tubes with integral fins are staked. You can see the tube and fins. You can see from this diagram. The tube ends expanded into a tube seats which are welded to the cell at both ends. Intermediate tube supports are provided in the cell to avoid sagging and rattling of tubes. You can see the baffle plates to support. Since it's a very easy to clean the water side and also it can be easily repaired, this water cooled condenser is very popular. You can easily clean. That's why it's used in most of the plants. Since ammonia affects copper, steel tubes are used for ammonia condenser. Water flows through the condenser water tubes while the refrigerant remains in the cell. So water flow will take place in the tubes. Next one is evaporative type. It's a combination of both. So this is the setup of evaporative type condenser. These condensers have some features of both air and water cooled types. Both air and water are employed as a condensing medium. That is why it is called evaporative condenser. Water is pumped from the sump of the evaporative condenser to spray the header. You can see the spray right over there. At the same time, fans suck the air from the bottom side to the condenser to discharge it at the top of the condenser. You can see the fan which sucks the air from the bottom. An eliminator is provided above the spray header to stop the particles of water from the escaping along with the discharge air. You can see the eliminators right over there to remove the water particles escaping out. The spray water coming in contact with the condenser tube surface evaporates into the air stream. The surface of heat for vaporizing the water is taken from the refrigerant, thereby condensing will take place. Just try to solve this problem as a practice problem. There is a similar one what we have solved earlier. The only change is turbine is used in expansion process. So mind this and calculate net work. Net work will be a compressor work minus the expansion work. Remaining all are same to previous problem. So try to solve this problem.